let's go over how to draw Shin Godzilla. We're going to go through it step by step. Let's get started with the penciling in of Shin Godzilla. So I'm going to start with his head, kind of more over here. We're going to do kind of a little bit toward like the knee area, so that it's, you know, he's on paper there. Hopefully you can see it. And he's going to be a little bit 3/4 view. We're going to try to keep the tail on the paper here. It's just kind of something like that. Just keeping it generally on hand. So here, and then we're going to have, like I said, to the knee. So his tail will be down here, be very large. Right there. And I want it to be leaning forward. That is something that I really want to do. So I'm pretty much going to have him, like I said, like leaning, like hunching down. That's a big thing for me. Circle for the shoulder here. I'm trying to find that area. Going downward to his arms. His arms are more shriveled than the other Godzilla, I feel. Or at least they look shriveled. He's got his hands kind of upward and like a, I don't know, like a no way kind of thing. He's got his hands upward. And what we're doing right now is I'm just finding the general vibe of him first, like the general layout. Chest will be around here, torso. I'm gonna move the leg around over here. I'm just trying to find. This is his stomach. It goes down, kind of wraps over here. The stomach's gonna merge into the tail. Maybe, yeah, I'll say about here, like he's stepping forward. And I want him to turn a little bit toward the camera. So we're gonna make his center of his chest over here. Maybe pull his arm a little bit back about there. And kind of what I'm doing now is I'm trying to get to the inking phase as quick as I can. So hopefully you don't have to endure this too long, this phase of it. He's got a very, he's got like a hamburger style head. His head is very like round in nature, in my opinion. I'm going to have it a little bit open. He has these wild googly eyes underneath his brow, I've noticed. Let's see over here. And I'm just going to throw some just simple cone shapes for his spikes on his back, for the osteoderms. His tail's going to be more detailed than the other Godzilla's tail, I think. It's a little bit longer for proportionally. There you go, something like this. And yeah, maybe I'm throwing the creepy hand in there. He's got about four. He's got 4 fingers. Right, this is including the thumb. I want his shoulder to show a little bit, and then putting the teeth around this area. And I think that's pretty close. I'm just taking a look at it if there's anything else. I don't want to have to come back to the pencils. That is literally something I do not want to do. If I come back to the pencils, it's going to be incredibly annoying. So I don't want to do that. That's something that I'm really looking for and really kind of eyeing when I'm looking at this. But okay, I think we can probably push into it now. Let me with the... It's not quite like a marker, but it is a little bit of a, what do you call it? It's not quite a marker, but basically it's something that's thin. All right, let's hop in. And I think what I'm really going to do is I'm going to focus in on his eye first. Okay? And if you capture the eye, it's gonna really, it's really gonna, how do you say, it's gonna matter a lot, right? Because if you capture the eye, it's gonna capture the spirit of what we're trying to do here. Like there is like a shadow right there, but you know he does have these googly eyes, but like I said, it's also like enveloped in shadow right here. I think that's what makes it look weird. Almost like eyeliner, but it's not that. Right, so something they have to kind of keep going back and forth and more or less, you know, keep an eye on when you're looking at that stuff. All right. And between his eye and the actual where his teeth begin is pretty short. And there's a lot of, one second. He actually does have like a nose over here. And then, there we go. Something that is good to notice is the teeth are different sizes. And they're going to be kind of separated out. They're like anglerfish teeth. You guys know what that is. All right. Got the... Back over here. Over here now. Making this head a little bit bigger than I would have normally. Well, it's a little bit wider right now. Putting a couple little lines underneath. Over here. All right. Back of the mouth over there. Right on. Pretty good so far. And he's got a little cap right here around head. Looks a little lazy, so I really want to give him a little bit more of an angry expression. we go. Just kind of going in over here and really trying to pinpoint and kind of nail the face, because that's going to be super vital to the entire thing. And we'll get back to the face in a little bit, but we're going to keep rolling down the body to kind of give it a little bit more here. Let's go down the neck. So the chest has this like interesting like spike almost upward in the chest area. It's really fascinating. He has this large opening over here from running up his neck. Here. There you go. And this little, like, it almost looks like gills. But I mean, he does, the other version of Godzilla does have gills, but there we go. There we go. Excellent. Let's go over here to the shoulder. And the shoulder's pretty big. So, like, this area is going to be a little bit bigger right there. It's kind of like balled up a little bit. I don't know how to describe it. It's like a balled up. It doesn't look quite like a deltoid, kind of. It does, but it doesn't. It's kind of like hanging over on it. That's interesting. Interesting deltoid. And then, all right. So we're kind of looking at his hands in general. We're more or less, right, thinking of like him kind of going like no. Right? That's kind of the way I think about it. His hands are probably, in my opinion, going to be the hardest part of the entire process. But don't think of the hands as too hard. A lot of people, I think, get really hung up on the hands in general. I think maybe a little too hung up, and it shouldn't really be that way. You should kind of enjoy what you got. His hands, I would say they're smaller than, like, they're thinner. They're more gaunt. Don't really like that pinky back there, but I have to deal with it. Like I said, his hands are a little small for his size, generally. There we go. Right here. Giving him, like I said, his top shoulder is pretty spread out over his back over here. It's a little bit big. Just kind of taking that into account as we're doing this whole thing. Mm-hmm. Going over here. So his lower body, every single right Godzilla has this pretty. I'm gonna make it bigger than our pencil too, like big lower body. That's pretty much the way every version of Godzilla has been. And it makes a lot of sense, right? If a character was like huge like that, you would have to have a giant base to support what was happening. All right, let's go out here. But we're gonna go in to the other hand first. I kind of forgot about it over there. Oops. Yeah. I'm turning that light on right there. Yeah. There. Try to make sure that some of this stuff matches. There we go. We're gonna figure out the how that hand's gonna look like. As far as the values go, we haven't even got into the values yet. Right now, I'm just trying to get the general line art in, and then from there, we can start thinking about other parts. There we go. Right on. There we go. Sweet. Hmm. Thinking of like the leg, like I said, the leg's pretty huge. And I feel a lot more comfortable after I get in, the basic line work for, whatever we're doing or whatever stage that we're at. So, going over here, tail, a little bit nubby. Kind of ends in this weird way. Have you ever seen the end of Shin Godzilla, the movie? They tend to have that there. Um, there we go. And we're getting somewhere, which is good. We're getting to a good place here. Alrighty. Let me see. I'm gonna go into the spiked area. There you go. And the spikes are gonna layer a little bit. A huge. It's not huge as far. We'll do the small ones in the front here, a few, and we're just gonna pick certain spots. I already kind of outlined them there, and it looks like a leaf. This version of Godzilla, to me, looks like the spikes, they call them dermal plates or something like that, right? Osteoderms. They remind me, like I said, of leaves. There we go. going down over here, picking my spots, trying to vary up the size a little bit, but not too much. There we go. And kind of making our way down the back over here. Over here on this area. And I would say, see, this is just the first layer. I've still got another layer right there. And then down the actual back, they get pretty manageable. They get tiny. So over here toward the tail, it's more or less just going to be just like a series of straight bumps. So nothing too outlandish, and just yeah, nothing too crazy right here. Just some bumps. Get a little bump texture over here. Going pretty good, I think. All right, going pretty good. So let's go over here to these spikes. Right here, going down. So it's larger. I'll put the peak largest one over here. There we go. So around this area. So the one will be in back over here just a bit. There you go. So we're at a stage right here where, I mean, let's bend it right here. I think the stage this is at, we could erase all of the pencil lines, and that's what I'm going to do right now. Okay, I'm going to cut, and then I'm going to come back, and you're going to have all the lines erased. All right, let's go over here, and I'm going to use a brush pen now. We're going to start putting in some of the large areas of dark, because there's going to be a lot of it. So Shin Godzilla generally is, I mean, he's like a dark gray, but he's not like Venom or anything like that. But we're gonna put in a lot of shadow because that's the style that I like using a lot. I think having a lot of dark in a certain area is really good, and we're just gonna splotch it on, and then we're going to after that we're going to manipulate, the edges of stuff. But right now, this will work. Depth, like think of like an egg, okay? Like an egg, and you're gonna have a light source on the top, and it's gonna be the lightest part on the top, and then the bottom is gonna be the darkest on the egg, and maybe there'll be some reflected light. And I'm kind of thinking of that, and if you want to really simplify it down, it's like that with this. And see, it's kind of putting in the dark areas at the bottom, and it's gonna be rolling up. That's something that we're thinking about, right? So thinking about the areas that are not catching light because of the light source from above. Right here, areas of like that tends to fold. But right now I'm like splotching it in, not too crazily, but I am splotching it in right now because it would just take too long with the other pen. And like I said, when we're going in there with the other pen, then it's going to be more of like sharpening, a little bit more of a strategic approach. I mean, this is strategic, don't get me wrong, but not as strategic as we're to kind of painstakingly put it in there. But I mean, why would you do that, right? That doesn't make any sense. Why would I put in every small detail when I don't have to? When I can just go in with a brush here and have it work out, right? There we go. Sweet. Going over here now. Again, finding, where these areas will be. This is not going to be as dark on this side, but this side will. You know, we're finding it as we're moving as well, or at least as I'm moving here. I'm finding it as I go in a way. You have to put lines down in order to correct them afterward. So that's another thing I had learned a long time ago that is really important. You gotta that's why when you don't really practice a lot, it's hard to get better because you have to learn from the stuff and evaluate the stuff you're putting down, right? If you learn from the stuff you're putting down, then it's going to get easier, then things are going to get simpler. There we go. There we go. Over here. Looking pretty good. I'm going to go here along the tail as well, just to kind of catch some darks over here. And it's cool too. This brush feels more like a sumi brush, like a something like Japanese influence, which it is. And go over here under the neck. Always under the neck for stuff like this. It kind of frames the head in a way there. Inside of the mouth there, and it's whatever shortcuts the process. All right, maybe over here just a bit. Also creates texture if you put it just a little lighter like this. It creates the illusion of texture of what's going on. All right. Alright, we're doing pretty good here. And I'm going to switch over to the other pen in a minute. But, yeah, pretty good so far. The spikes are interesting because dark will push it back usually, and light will bring it forward. So, it's a lot of that. There we go. So you're kind of toying with the dark and the light there a lot. Because, like I said, one pushes back and one comes forward. In some other drawings, the way you do them, sometimes the dark will bring it forward, right? Like as in when you put bold lines, it will bring it forward. But you know, that's just kind of like how things work with this. So you just have to play around with it. All right, I think that's good. We could probably at this point go in with the sharper of the two. All right, pretty good so far. All right, there you go. Sweet. Let's go over here. Same thing. Dark. Okie dokie. Right over here, dark as well. Mm-hmm. There we go. Alrighty. Okay, let's push into the previous pen I was using real quick, and then we'll kind of go over that. All right, let's push into it. So I'm going deep into the face now. Even though the face is small, I need it to have some of the detail, right? So I'm gonna go in here, and although I do have to take into account that it's a smaller scale, I do have to think about that. Some people think you don't have to. You put wild detail everywhere, and you put just as much detail into the smaller parts. That's not true. So the smaller it is, you have to take into account what kind of details you put in. If we put in tons and tons and tons of fine lines, which we're going to put fine lines in here, don't get me wrong. But if we put too many of those lines, you're not going to look right at the face like you're supposed to. So we have to maybe not put as many lines as we're thinking, you know. So there you go. There you go. Just putting it in around the edges, but right, we're not gonna put them in too deeply in the face too deeply because, like I said, it's gonna crowd it. You don't want to crowd it. The more you crowd it, um, the less attention it's gonna bring. So you don't want to crowd that area that much.
Going here on the neck. But at the same time, right here, it's on the neck. We do want to, it's on the neck. Lower mouth. We'll move to the lower mouth real quick. At the same time, since we're moving that direction, you want to make more precise lines around the head. And then see, I'm fixing the edges of some of the shadow that we put in with the other brush pen right over here. This is going to be a sharp edge right here because that chest kind of cuts out into it. So definitely something to take into account. His shoulder is this big, mushy shoulder thing that I saw a lot on. It reminds me a lot of Space Godzilla. He has this big, mushy shoulder. There you go. Mm-hmm. There we go. All right. Now the crunchiness in the back of the arm there. Gonna sharpen out shadow around here, around the arm. Right, because the arm is kind of coming forward there. We want it to be not too dark because then we're not going to see the arm much. But we got to put something in there because it's devoid of information right now. It needs information. So we're going to do that together. Push more info. Mm-hmm. There we go. So you're putting in some of the information right there, like again, we're trying with Shin Godzilla, so Shin Godzilla has like again the craggly skin, and you could very easily, like I said, crowd it too much. So I'm picking my spots here around the elbow, around the arm, kind of like around the bicep. I'm literally just kind of picking and choosing, and that could be that is the hard part of this, right? You have to pick, and then you have to leave out some other parts. Some parts you will leave out, and just the way that's just the way it's gonna be. Some parts you gotta pick, and a lot of picking and choosing going on. Let's move down a little bit here. We can do a little bit more striations. This drawing, by the way, this kind of drawing is one of those drawings that conceivably you could never finish in a way because there's so many craggly areas, but it would be okay to leave stuff. So like for example around the stomach area I could just leave parts of it. It's fine. Right? But I choose to kind of throw in what I need to. There we go. There we go. Mm-hmm. Right on. Going over here again, just kind of sharpening out some of the folding, right? And that's going to be the majority of it. I think this could use a lot more texture here for sure. The osteoderm here, whatever you call it. Mm-hmm. Right here again, just pulling out some of the information. I didn't want to dark it totally. I thought darkening it totally would be, I don't know, just it's not going to be for this drawing. I was going to say a cop out, but it's not a cop out. I just don't see it as a good idea. There you go. There you go. Excellent. Right on. And yeah, then you kind of have to step back every now and then because sometimes you're too close. Sometimes you're too close and you're like, oh man, I need to pull back, take a look, right, and then consider it again. Take a look, step back, take a look. Let's just put off some finishing touches on here, right? Going all over the place and sharpening out edges and putting in a couple of more relevant things, as we can see here. I filled out his stomach a little bit. I thought his stomach needed to be filled out, meaning I'm going to put dark. I didn't want a reflected light going all the way down, so I filled it out around there. Mm-hmm. that's kind of it, honestly. This is good enough to kind of make it work. There's always more that could be done, right? I could fill out the nails a little bit more over here. I could do, there's a lot of little things I could do. But as far as just, realistically kind of keeping it, uh, this video around an hour-ish or so, this will absolutely work. I want to thank you very much. If you enjoyed this, please request something and share the video if you did like it. And if you got to this point, you're amazing. Say hi to me in the video because nobody ever gets to the end of the video. All right, see you later.